I'd say musically, the most interesting bit was the drums. He really did a great job, and he kept flicking between this aggressive metal cymbal work, and then into these pounding toms that gave it a sort of a rush. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm John. Here's Andy.
Mhm.
Too many Florence Nightingales, not enough Robin Hoods. Too many halos, not enough heroes. Coming up with the goods. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to. Andy, you are picking the tune today. What do you got?
Showed you this band recently. It was a fun episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did as well, or either you did or you're a fabulous actor. But the band that we discussed
Have you
was
seen my Hamlet?
Descendants. What'd you say?
Have you seen my Hamlet?
This is I have not. I wish I had. This is the Descendants, and it's a track by
Oh,
the
yeah.
yeah.
Coolidge, wasn't it? We said
Yes.
before, yeah.
Yeah, we did Coolidge. Now I want you to check out we're gonna fast forward some 17 years, I think, from when Coolidge came out, and we're gonna check out a track by them called Merican.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So please, it's a short little number. So if you don't like it, it won't last long, don't worry. But if you do like it, you'll wish it lasted longer. But go off, give this thing a listen, and let me know what you've made of it.
We flipped our finger to the King of England, stole our country from the Indians. We got on our side and guns in our hand, took it for our own. Built a nation dedicated to liberty, justice and...
Okay, it's a short song. Yeah, take it as read. I'm going to go back a couple of times at least. Yeah, really interesting start. A little howl at the start. This sounds more, I want to say, like the difference between American punk and British punk. We've talked about this, Andy and I, before. This sounds to me more like I would call hardcore or even like skater punk a little bit. Um, but yeah, he says some interesting lines talking about flipped finger to the King of England, and then stole their country from the Indians. And it's about God and guns. Yeah, fair enough. All the good stuff is in there. Let's go back and start it again.
We flipped our finger to the King of England, stole our country from the Indians. We got on our side and guns in our hand, took it for our own. Built a nation dedicated to liberty,
Oh, those drums are
and
nice.
equality. Doesn't look that way to you, it doesn't look that way to me. Sickest joke I know. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't wanna listen, you don't wanna understand. So finish up your drink and go home. I come from the land of Ben Franklin, Twain and Poe, where all women, Otis Redding, Ellington, the country that I love. But it's a land of the slaves and the Ku Klux Klan. Haymarket riot and the Great Depression, Joe McCarthy, Vietnam, sickest joke I know. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I...
Okay, what I got. I might just take that back a bit. So we listed a few of the bits that he was really proud of the country. Um, Definitely had Franklin, Otis Redding, Ellington. And then the flip side of that coin, slaves, KKK, McCartney, and Vietnam. So yeah, it's interesting two dynamics. the sort of dynamics to it. This is not just America sucks or America, great. No, interesting. Let's just whiz it back a little bit. I'm guessing it out there.
Finish up your drink and go home. I come from the land of Ben Franklin, Twain and Poe, where all women. Otis Redding, Ellington, the country that I love. But it's a land of the slaves and the Ku Klux Klan. Haymarket riot and the Great Depression. Joe McCarthy, Vietnam, sickest joke I know. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't wanna listen, you don't wanna understand. So finish up your drink and go home. I'm proud and ashamed. Every 4th of July, you got to know the truth before you say that you got pride. Now the cops got tanks 'cause
A couple of things. I was just having a flashback there because in the previous song, didn't they do some crappy solo or something? And then at the end, it went, sorry. Or was that in the harmonies when he went, sorry? That's funny. Anyway, that's another quite funny little solo. But it says something about being proud and ashamed of the 4th of July. Got to know the truth before you got. I thought he said pie. That can't be right. Let's go back. No, about there. I'm guessing.
listen, you don't wanna understand. So finish up your drink and go home. I'm proud and ashamed. Every 4th of July, you got to know the truth before you say that you got pride.
Spazzy guitar. So before you say you've got pride, sorry, it's like 4th of July pie. Yeah, that's a really good lyric because again, it's this. America is not the only country that has this, but it's probably more highlighted in America because of the Pledge of Allegiance and things like that, and the laws about the flags. We don't have laws about you can do what you like to Union Jack in this country. Yeah, but the sort of jingoism, that if you criticize your country in some way, you're not patriotic, whereas the sort of reverse. It's probably true that if you criticize it, it's because you love your country, that you want to make it better, and not just accept everything is wonderful because it flies under your flag. And the things that people do in your name may not be acceptable. Yeah, interesting. Right. Sorry, I stopped mid spazzy guitar. Let's carry on.
Got taste 'cause the kids got.
Sorry, there is a reason why you don't get many guitar solos in proper punk songs. I think that just illustrated it.
Guns, strings, pushing pills on everyone. Cancer from the ocean, cancer from the sun. Straight to hell we go. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't wanna listen, you don't wanna understand. So finish up your drink and go home. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't wanna listen, you don't wanna understand. So finish up your drink and go home. Finish up your drink and go home.
That's that chorus again. Listen, I will tell you, I'm just another stupid American. That's the most like skater sounding part of it. But I have to say, the drums throughout this and the percussion were great. It kept changing between that sort of aggressive sort of cymbal work and then to the tom work, which is sort of pounding. Really nice sounding. Most of the whole melody of the song was taken through the vocals. The guitars were just not really, I maybe do a disservice, but for me, it was just fairly flat, the guitars, in terms of just this background of noise, which I love just as much. Yeah, this is a really fun, interesting song. And it's so I'm sure it's one that Andy will want to talk a bit more about. I wonder if they got stick for this or whether people went, yeah, right on. Or probably both. Are you ready to find out? Let's go back and talk with Andy.
All right. Welcome back. So, what are your thoughts now of the song after hearing these guys now for a second time?
As you said, short little number indeed.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of labels, and we discussed this before, the sort of UK versus USA sort of genre labels. I would make this distinction, and it may only exist in my mind and no one else's. Um, I would call this sort of music as almost like hardcore light.
Mhm.
Um, I know that sort of Americans are quite fond of calling this sort of like punk pop. I wouldn't call it that. I would almost, it's almost edges on skater punk, this. Do you know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Yeah.
But it's certainly less what I'll call UK punk than sort of Coolidge was. Um, and for the most part, the music is fairly simple. It has these the hardcore chugging guitars. And I think the bit that kind of loses me with American punk, and I'm talking sort of, Black Flag onwards, is this sort of the the chord. It's all about the quick chord progressions and power and pace to it. But because of the level of distortion, for me, it also becomes a flat wave, and it's hard to.
Yeah.
And then you go into that sort of. We've talked before about the new metal crappy, really condensed guitars. The same thing. So although I probably would agree with a lot of what's going on, that sort of thing doesn't warm my cockles as much as like UK punk does with
Yeah.
its very basic sort of bar chords, but it just has a slightly more melody to it. I would say that the melody in this is probably carried by the vocals, um, and really done really well. Um,
Mhm.
the most interesting, I'm talking about the music first, we'll get on to the lyrics of what I cobbled together, and I did run through it twice and rewound it a number of times because it's clearly the lyrics are the most fun part of this song. But I'd say musically, the most interesting bit was the drums. He really did a great job, and he kept flicking between this aggressive metal cymbal work and then into these pounding toms that gave it a sort of a rush.
Mhm.
And the pace kept going up and down through that. Although, obviously tempo the same, but it just really added a lot to it, the drums, and I really enjoyed it. So anyway, the vocals and the delivery is great, and the lyrics are really interesting. What I got, and it started off, and I did rewind it to get this. Hope I got this. Something about we flipped the finger to the King of England and then stole country from the Indians. And then there was something about gods and guns, and I was like, yeah, yeah. And at this point, for some reason, it kind of reminded me in a way, it almost felt like it could have gone like a up-tempo, like folksy protest song that kind of along the lines of Frank Turner or something like that. But it didn't. But it just felt like it could have gone at that point that way.
Yeah.
Um, and then there was was the chorus. Again, really interesting attitude to this. Listen up, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. It's about you don't want to listen, you don't want to understand. So finish your drink and go out. And again, it's just like equating that this stupid American obviously must have a drink in their hands at this
Yeah.
point, and they're doing all their sort of um, existential debating around the bar. It's quite funny. It's almost Cliffy in a way,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But then he goes on into one of the next verses, and I've probably missed a bit out here, but he then sort of lists things that he really loves. He says the country I love. I've got Franklin, Poe. I think it was Walt Whitman, Otis Redding, and Duke Ellington. And this is the country I love. And that's really interesting. These are all creative sort of people. Uh, Franklin probably the most creative in
My
terms of
favorite of the founding fathers.
what he managed to do. I mean, he was a
Yeah.
dicey bastard, but he's a chancer as well, but a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Um, and all the things he got up to were quite hilarious. But I mean, Poe's a great man, and so is Whitman, and so most definitely is Otis Redding and Duke Ellington. hugely. So it's interesting. You could have picked any number, and he picked those, which I thought was quite interesting. But
Yeah.
then he contrasts in the next verse. So it says, however, it's like land of the slaves, the KKK. He said some other stuff which I didn't pick up, but it was definitely Joe McCarthy and Vietnam, which is like America's biggest shame, as it were, at that
Mhm.
time. And it was a bloody nose sort of thing as well, wasn't it? This small little country giving America a bloody nose. So it was really interesting, the balance and the contrast there. And then there was a key line after it, which again I rewound and listened to again. I'm proud and ashamed every 4th of July. And I did get this wrong the first listen because it said you've got to know the truth before you say that you've got, and I thought you said pie, and I thought linked to do with the 4th of July, and it's pride. I'm sure it is now. It could still be pie. Somewhere in one universe it is pie, but it is pride. Um, and yeah, again, is this balance because you do get a lot of songs which are kind of America sucks, and then other songs which are God bless, etc., etc. No, America's not United States of America. Sorry, is not unique in this sort of problematic self-view. Um, this country, amongst many others, are the same. But I do think it's probably more pronounced in America, the USA, because of things like the Pledge of Allegiance and the laws you have about the flag. You can do what you like to the Union Jack in this country. It really
Mhm.
doesn't matter. No one gets hung up about it. It's interesting, that there are laws in place, which I find very strange. It's just a bit of cloth, but there you go. So you can't kill or rip up an idea, you know. But anyway,
I totally agree
your
with
choice. But there you go. So yeah, this sort of jingoistic sort of approach. I remember us talk. It would have been at school about jingoism from the Russian Turkish war, I think it was, in the song and all that. And then there's this criticism, and it happens in this country as well, but I think it happens a lot more in the USA, where if you criticize an element of the country, you're seen to be unpatriotic.
you.
Whereas the opposite is probably true, that if you care enough about your country, you will point out elements that could be improved.
Mhm.
Um, and again, um, people doing things in your name, you have certainly the right to point out when you're unhappy about it, wherever that be,
Mhm.
invading another country or starting trade wars or whatever, you certainly have that right in a democratic society to air your concerns, misgivings, and things you want to see put right. So yeah, good on him. So yeah, after so this all made me think about this in this very short song. After that, we get this spazzy little guitar solo, which highlights perfectly why there aren't very many guitar solos in punk songs. Although it was charming in its sort of, and there we get the repeated chorus again at the end, which I said is probably the most skater part of the song, had that sort of feel to it. Um, so yeah, overall, it was really interesting and a very short, punchy song. And I do realize I missed out some other lyrics that were probably more just as interesting. They did something about tanks and kids with guns and stuff, but I kind of lost that bit. I didn't get it down. Um, but yeah, it makes me wonder whether they got stick for this at the time or whether there was enough people who said, yeah, right, or whether it's completely polarized like every fucking else thing is nowadays. There you go. But yeah,
Yeah.
interesting song. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, this is one of those songs for me where it's like I think I told you when we did Don't Drink the Water that I tend to play that on Thanksgiving as sort of like a little reminder to, how we got to where we are. This is one of my 4th of July songs for sure. and I totally agree with you about how you love your country. Is not in. I feel like a lot of people love their country like a child loves their parent. Like they can do no wrong. They are my hero. They are my, my best. I look up to them. How could they? They're infallible. They are the guiding light. I think you should flip it around. Like love your country like you would love your child. Love them unconditionally, but know that they're going to make mistakes, and you want to right those mistakes or do what you can to help them see the mistakes that they've made because you love them and you want them to do better in the future. And that's a healthier relationship, I think, to have with your country or your government, which is all made up of human beings who are inherently fallible. So of course mistakes will be made. You can't put it on a pedestal to the point where it can do no wrong, because then it's out of control. It could do whatever at that point, and you're just going to acquiesce and be like, that's my country. I love it no matter what. So yeah, that's a really important aspect to it too, which I think he illustrates really well, like you were noting in the lyrics and how he's playing. Like, look, these are the great parts, these are the bad parts. So yes, I do really, really enjoy this song, and I tend to agree with a lot of the sentiments espoused within it. But quick recap of the band: Descendents. They are an American punk rock band formed in 1977 in Manhattan Beach, California, by guitarist Frank Nevada, bassist Tony Lombardo, drummer Bill Stevenson, as a power pop surf punk band. And in '79, they enlisted Milo Ackerman as a singer, and he reappeared the band reappeared as a melodic hardcore punk band, becoming a major player in the hardcore scene developing in LA at the time. We discussed that much further in detail in our previous episode. So please, if you're a fan of Descendants, go check that out. Or if you want to learn more about them, go check that out. They've released 8 albums, 3 live albums, 3 compilation albums, 4 EPs. And since 1986, the band's lineup has consisted of Ackerman, Stevenson, guitarist Steven Edgerton, and bassist Carl Alvarez. Merican is an EP by them that was released February 10th, 2004. It was the band's first release for Fat Wreck Chords, spelled Fat Wreck Chords, Fat Records, and served as a pre-release of their 6th studio album, Cool to Be You. And that was released the following month. The EP includes 2 songs from the album, Nothing With You and Merican, this track that we listened to, and 3 B-sides from the album sessions, Here With Me, I Quit, and the hidden track, Alive. Merican marked the first release of new studio material from Descendants since 1996's Everything Sucks, and was the 3rd release ever to chart, peaking at number 29 on Billboard's top independent albums and at number 38 on the top Heat Seekers chart. In 1987, Descendants singer Milo Ackerman had left the band to pursue a career in biochemistry, which we also touched on. The remaining members, bassist Carl Alvarez, guitarist Steven Edgerton, and drummer Bill Stevenson, changed the band's name to All and released 8 albums on Cruise Records and Interscope Records between 88 and 95, with singers Dave Smalley, Scott Reynolds, and Chad Price. Ackerman contributed occasional songwriting and backing vocals, and in 1995 decided he wanted to return to music. And the members decided to operate as 2 bands from that moment forward, working with Ackerman as Descendants and with Price as All. Both bands signed with Epitaph Records, and Descendants released Everything Sucks in '96. Following the album's supporting tours, Ackerman had returned to his science career, though he recorded backing vocals for All's 1998 album, Mass Nerder, and also released Problematic in 2000 and Live Plus One in 2001, a double live album that included a Descendants disc recorded in 1996. The recording sessions for the Descendants' 6th studio album, Cool to Be You, took place with Ackerman in February of 2002 at the Blasting Room in Fort Collins, Colorado, with additional recording done in April at Planet of Sound in Wilmington, Delaware, and were produced by Stevenson. The band recorded the music for the songs live in the studio with minimal overdubbing, and Ackerman's vocals were recorded over the instrumental tracks. However, these recordings were not released for another 2 years. Stevenson explained that the gap of 8 years between Descendant albums was due to the band members having children and his father's death. For the release of Merican and Cool to Be You, the Descendants signed to Fat Records. Label head and musician Fat Mike was a longtime fan of the band, and his enthusiasm for working with them was a major factor in their decision to sign with the label. Stevenson commented that if you've got the owner of the label saying he wants to put out a record by what is probably his favorite band of all time, that's rad. That's the best possible position to be in. So yeah, I guess it was pretty easy for them to just jump right back in if someone's frothing at the gash to just have you, please let me record you. So the title song is actually a stretch for us. If you look back on all songs we've done, there are very few that have any political content in them. Merican addresses positive and negative aspects of American history, as you noted, celebrating cultural figures such as Otis Redding, Duke Ellington, and Walt Whitman, while condemning slavery, Joseph McCarthy, and the Ku Klux Klan and the Vietnam War, among other things. John Lurison of AllMusic gave it 3.5 stars out of 5, remarking that Nothing With You revisits the timeless lovelorn attack of cherished songs from their past like Wendy, Clean Sheets, and Silly Girl, while Merican harkens back to vintage Bad Religion, and I Quit is a nervous, edgy, Catalina-like throwback. Daryl Sturton of the Tinnitus wrote, in these dark days of shallow corporate punk, discs like Merican, a precursor to a forthcoming album, ring with the authenticity, intelligence, and commitment that have been missing from the ranks for far too long. The title cut collapses the sad, sordid history of the U.S. into 1 minute and 51 seconds of buzzsaw guitars, charging drums, and sing-along hooks. In her review of the EP, Julie River of punknews.org wrote of the EP and the song, it's a showcase for the title track, which is truly an excellent song and one that's somehow breaking the mold of punk rock, yet it's definitely punk rock at the same time. Merican may be somewhat of a forgotten EP, but Merican remains one of Descendants' greatest triumphs. So, these lyrics. We flipped our finger to the King of England, stole our country from the Indians. With God on our side and guns in our hands, we took it for our own. A nation dedicated to liberty, justice, and equality. Does it look that way to you? It doesn't look that way to me. The sickest joke I know. Listen up, man. I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't want to listen? You don't want to listen? You don't want to understand? So finish up your drink and go home. I come from the land of Ben Franklin, Twain, and Poe, and Walt Whitman, Otis Redding, Ellington, the country that I love. But it's the land of slaves and the Ku Klux Klan, Haymarket Riot, and the Great Depression. Joe McCarthy, Vietnam, the sickest joke I know. Listen up, man, I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't want to listen, you don't want to understand, so finish up your drink and go home. I'm proud and ashamed every 4th of July. You got to know the truth before you say that you got pride. Now the cops got tanks because the kids got guns. Shrinks pushing pills on everyone. Cancer from the ocean, cancer from the sun. Straight to hell we go. Listen up, man. I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't want to listen. You don't want to understand. So finish up your drink and go home. Listen up, man. I'll tell you who I am. Just another stupid American. You don't want to listen. You don't want to understand. So finish up your drink and go home. Finish up your drink and go home. I think it's to me, it's in a way you read those lyrics, you think it's fucking incredible that they fit all of this like really nice exposition and content into like, yeah, a minute and 51 seconds. Of like they say, this raw, fast-paced guitar, buzzsaw drums, all of this energy. And I think it's awesome that they have the energy to match this attitude and what they're talking about. It is to me like quintessential, you know, skater punk, pop punk, some might call it here. Hardcore light, others might call it over there. But whatever you call it, it's to me, it's just a delightful observation. It rings so true to me. The things that he discusses, that he highlights, and that he underscores as sort of points of shame for him.
It's interesting. I was thinking about this as you were going through the lyrics. There's not really and you mentioned, Thanksgiving as well. There's not really a day set aside in this country, which links in with national identity. There's the patron saints days, but they're not really. So not like 4th of July or Thanksgiving, where you have days of almost introspection about your own country, and we don't have that. I mean, in terms of unique holidays, we have a May Day, but it's known as Labor Day around the world, and they don't really celebrate anything. It used to be like the maypoles and weird Morris dancing and shit like that, but I don't think that really happens much anymure. And the
You don't have
other
any
one is
sort of
bonfire.
Memorial Day for those who.
I mean, yeah, but that's the people who've fallen in conflict around the world. It's nothing really looking back at our own country at all. That's excuse me, this coughing is spreading. Yeah, I mean that's Armistice Day, 11th of November is when we do it, and the only other sort of unique. We have Boxing Day, which celebrates, the monarchy giving money to poor people, or Bonfire Night when we celebrate burning Catholics. So neither of those really are healthy, introspective looks at the state of our society.
Yeah. Well, to be fair,
yeah.
the ones that we have are only as healthy and as introspective as the people celebrating them. So if you celebrate 4th of July because you're wrapped up in the stars and stripes and you want to see things blow up, what are you getting from it? But at what they should be is what you're saying. And I think, as long as there's still some people in this country that look at it that way, then hopefully there's promise in that. But, who knows? Some people just like Thanksgiving because it's football and a reason to get fat. And not so much the being thankful about what came before you or what got you to where you are or the past year or any of that. I guess it's what you make of it. A lot like the country itself. But yeah, it's just
or in the words of Talk Life.
Yeah.
That's what you make it.
Exactly. So yeah, this is always kind of underscored how I feel about a lot of things. I wanted to share with you and get your opinion on some of this stuff and your thoughts on it. So thank you for giving a listen, John. I appreciate your time, buddy.
No, I enjoyed it. It's a really interesting song.
Excellent. All right, guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this second track we've done here on the channel by Descendents, Merican. And just feel free to drop your comments down below. We love interacting with you guys and seeing you all interact with each other. Like, share, and subscribe, please, if you haven't, and if you would. It really does help us grow the channel, and we are super thankful for that. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. See you later, guys.